Hello again, this is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. This is episode number 190. We are 5 days away from the presidential election. We're biting our nails. No matter what side of this election you're on, you're biting your nails. They say as of today, anyway, it's a coin flip. So got a great panel this week. The legendary Doc of Comedy Rock, Dr. Gonzo, is joining us, along with Yanni Abbaba, who was just here a couple of weeks ago, who has just some great insight and great analysis, and Rob Becker, who has the longest-running solo show in the history of Broadway, is going to join us as well, and very insightful about what's going on in the world of politics. So before we get to them, I want to thank you all who are subscribing if you're watching us on YouTube, who are giving us 5-star reviews if you are listening to us on Spotify or Amazon or Apple or any of the other places where you can hear a podcast. Please continue to do that because it helps people to find the show. And again, we're trying to get enough folks on YouTube subscribing so that we can do this live, so that you can chime in with your questions, with your comments, with your thoughts while we're talking. So that'll be a great addition, have you be a part of the show. So please do that. But in the meantime, here we go. All right, this week we got a panel of three pals of mine. One who's been on this show, Yanni Abbaba, who just was here a couple of weeks ago. Good to have you back with us. And two friends I've known forever, who I've not seen in a long time. Rob Becker, stand-up comic, the creator of Defending the Caveman, the longest running solo show in Broadway history. International hit is here. Good to have you, man. I haven't seen you in forever.
Good to be here. Good to be with you.
Actually, you know what? I just realized, the last time I saw you, I was opening for Cosby. I came and sat down like in the front. I had like my kids and some friends to see Cosby, and like in the third row, and you were sitting with your wife directly in front of me. So that's the last time I saw you. So back when it was okay to go and see Cosby, when he was
filming. Last time I thought we had lunch one time over in Albany.
That was before Cosby.
That was before?
That was before Cosby.
Wow, it's been a while.
It has been a bit. And the legendary Doc of Comedy Rock, Dr. Gonzo, with us, man. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Brian.
I was a little worried about your hat at the beginning because it looked like a red hat. And again, man, you're on
Cincinnati
the wrong show.
Cincinnati Reds. I'm not a fan, but it's just a cool hat. It's got Jerry Garcia's missing finger on it. It's good for a topic.
All right, now where are you in Iowa? Is that where you are?
Illinois. Illinois, downstate. We are a blue state because of Chicago.
Because of Chicago.
But everything's rural around here, so you kind of know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you seeing more Trump signs?
I'm seeing more Harris signs lately. I haven't I was surprised. Yeah, it's kind of both ways, But nobody really talks that much politics around here. Everybody's too busy trying to make a living and survive.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you would say that because you were city councilman there, from what I understand, and you were the mayor, actually.
Yeah, well, I wasn't the mayor, but I was. I'm involved in. I pay a lot of attention to local politics. I don't really pay too much attention to all the bickering. I don't watch the news, and I've been a lot happier ever since. Uh-huh. I watch baseball on TV and Twilight Zone.
So you do watch the news?
Yeah. I'm informed. Okay, I read.
How do you know if you're watching the Twilight Zone or the news?
I don't know. Well, there's not a guy going, picture if you will. So that's the only difference. No, I just keep things pretty cool around here.
All right, we're going to start with this. Okay, you guys have not done the show. Yanni's done the show before, so she knows how it goes. We just talk. I mean, I got a bunch of topics here. We just talk. It goes where it goes. If it's funny, it's funny. If it's not, it's not. We're going to be informative. Okay. All right, so here's what I want to start with. Let's just start with this clip if we're ready. This was a clip that our executive producer Tom Sawyer sent me this morning. I am not sure who the speaker is. It is from another podcast, but he's talking about why, based on the latest polls, you have 20% of African American men who are under the age of 25 who are voting for Trump, a constituency you would not expect to see. And listen to the reason that he gives.
He can't fail enough of white privilege that Donald Trump is being treated with. This is a masterclass in white privilege. Trump can't say enough to be racist.
Correct.
He can't commit enough crimes to be a criminal. He can't fail enough to be a failure. And he can't say enough stupid things to be stupid. He is so shielded and insulated by the idea and the concept of whiteness that he is unfucking touchable.
Yeah.
The thought conjured around him matters more than any reality. Any reality. He is a Christian that doesn't know the Bible, that fucks porn stars, that
grabs women by the pussy,
grabs women by the pussy, is the least Christ-like, but the sheer promise of the whiteness that exists inside of Donald Trump is enough for everyone, white and black people, a lot of them who worship whiteness and aspire to the level of whiteness that Trump has. It's enough for them to say, hey, he's still our guy, no matter what.
It's the whiteness he guarantees to protect. That's what he represents, right? It's their being that he guarantees to protect. And that's true. That's something that they won't say, but that they're voting for.
All right. So, and I want to mention something too about kind of a white privilege thing. And I just think it's fascinating to see a black man in a cowboy hat talking about white privilege. But I thought that
the cowboy culture came from black people.
Sure.
I know.
I know. But that's not what we think of when we see a cowboy usually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, usually. Not these days. Well, actually, Beyonce's made it stylish now. So, but what do you think about what it is he has to say? Because I couldn't figure it out why you'd have 20%, especially in that age bracket. Because one of the things Trump said he will do if he becomes president is he will give police total immunity. And I don't know if he can unilaterally do that or what, but he wants cops to have total immunity so they can do whatever they want. They kill you, they shoot you in the back, whatever, that they cannot be prosecuted for whatsoever. And the demographic that will primarily be affected by a policy like that is black men under 25. So, I wondered what it was why would you do this? What are you getting out of this? So your thoughts on what it is you just heard?
Well, Beyonce didn't win any Grammys because of white privilege. I know that. I mean, because she had a huge album.
Yes, she did.
And it was well received and no awards whatsoever. The country community, I don't think, was ready to let her in.
No.
You know what I'm saying? But as far as what this guy was just talking about, yeah, I mean, I know people that are scared that minorities are going to take over the country. I'm living in rural America, and it was white farmers. I'm surrounded by retired white farmers. They don't talk about it that much, but I think people are scared a little bit of the outside world. I mean, our demographics here are probably about 96-7% white.
Yeah. But it's just a reality, though. At some point, we're all going to be brown.
Yes, I know. We're all going to breed into each other eventually, But it's. I'm just saying that might be. They might think that Trump is the last savior of the white race, and look at his followers.
The funny thing is that people, white supremacy, the idea that you're superior because you're white. White skin is actually less protective.
Yes.
You're actually more fragile if you're white.
That's funny.
I don't believe that many black men are voting for Trump. Those polls were paid for by right-leaning organizations, including the Trump campaign. And they're designed to skew towards them favorably. I don't think that many. And I think the ones who are voting for them, there are ones who want the proximity to whiteness and think that in order to be white, you have to be Uncle Ruckus, right? We all know them. But
great character, by the way, from the Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus.
Yeah. And I think it's more about they don't have that information. They're not hearing what Trump is saying, what his plan is for people of color. They're not hearing about the details of Project 2025 and how it's going to dismantle the Department of Education and directly affect them and their children. they're just not getting the information. And a lot of them are listening to rappers and influencers who are being paid by the Trump campaign and
by the
RNC,
Russians. And by the Russians, we're finding out.
And by the Russians to talk about how we need to vote for Trump because we're going to get another stimmy check. So I think that's what's going on. I think it's like, you know how Trump keeps repeating a lie until it becomes true? I think in this situation, they're repeating a lie until it becomes true. I would believe those numbers if it was Latino people prior to this weekend, because Latino voters. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a minute. Would do that, but I don't believe there's that many Black men under the age of 25 that are going to vote for Trump. Probably like 12%.
Now, I heard an interesting theory. I was doing this solo show that just closed this past weekend on monologues on life during the Trump era called The Great American Shit Show. And afterwards I was I had hats. I had blue hats that said "Make America Think Again." And I had this guy who got a bunch of these hats, young African-American guy, maybe 30. And there were a group of us, who were talking in line and stuff just about the situation. And that statistic came up. And he said, I goes, I know these guys. They're just saying this because they're being asked. They're not going to vote. He goes, go hang around the barbershop. They'll talk all this, macho male crap. Yeah, I'm voting for Trump. Of course I'm voting for Trump. He goes, they're not going to get their asses off the couches and vote. None of them ever voted before. Because when you stick a microphone or a camera in somebody's face, and they feel like they got to say something, so they'll beat their chest. They're not going to say I'm voting for Kamala because it's not very macho to say that you're voting for Kamala. What do you think of that theory?
Well, the macho thing I understand. I mean, there's what else is there to Trump? What's there? I mean,
but is that macho? But is that macho?
I don't know. I think it's funny because if you drive around rural areas, you'll see these pictures of Trump that they've made where you're standing on the deck of like an aircraft carrier and he's got bullet belts around him and he's got all these muscles they put on him and everything. They see him as this macho guy, but when I listen to him, all the guy does is complain. He just whines and whines and whines. Somebody else got something he should have got. He deserved it more. How come he's not getting what that guy's getting? That guy's getting all this praise and I should be getting it. It's just nothing but whining and complaining and moaning. And how anybody thinks that guy's macho? And when he's not whining and complaining, he's gossiping. He's the most gossipy guy. I mean, the way he talks, people say this and I hear people say that, all these kinds of things. He's not very direct. There's nothing particularly traditionally masculine about the guy.
Well, that's actually an old Fox News trick. If you ever get a chance, see the documentary. It's probably 15 years old now, called Outfoxed. And the thing that they pull in order to spread disinformation and have plausible deniability about the sources is by saying, some people say.
Some people say.
That's what they say. Some people say.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like one. And I hear that. I mean, I'm in Tennessee, right? I'm in Nashville. And I hear that people are like, well, some people say, blah, blah. I'm like, who are those people? Yeah. Or the they, the they. I love the they. Who are they? Who are they? I would like to meet this they. I would like to have a conversation with they because they are responsible for a lot of problems in the world, whoever they are. I know no one can ever tell you do you guys know who the they are?
No.
The Illuminati.
To me, it's like when you're arguing with somebody, especially if you argue with them online, the person will say, all my friends agree with me. And that's how you know they've got a losing argument. All these people supposedly, that agree with them. It's like, you know what? All my friends agree with me too.
Everybody I know. All right, let me ask you what you think about this, because this is sort of on the same, not a sort of, exactly on the same topic. Van Jones. The activist and political pundit with CNN and author said something very interesting in a panel last week, where he said that the deal with Harris and Trump is that they're not taking the same exam. He gets to be lawless while she has to be flawless. You think that's accurate?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And the other, putting all this together, I mean, the whole Trump concept to me is that he's unhinged. And when you're unhinged, all these other countries around the world go, we don't know what this guy's going to do. And that might keep them from doing something harmful. And I think a lot of people like the concept that he is totally unhinged and off his rocker. He scares the rest of the world, and I don't like that idea at all. But I see that in people in some conversations.
Well, it's an old idea. It's called the crazy man theory. But the thing is the crazy man theory is supposed to scare your enemies.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy's got it completely backwards. Right. But he's kissing up to all our enemies, and he's scaring all of our allies.
It's like G. Gordon Liddy's story of when he first went to prison, that the first thing he did was he lit a match or something and held it under his hand until the flesh burned. So everybody would go, stay away from him. He's crazy.
I feel like he was like that before he went to prison, though, right?
I used to see that. I used to see that when I would be negotiating contracts when I was doing Caveman. And my agent would come back and with these crazy offers, that they were too low. And I'd say, well, I don't want to take that. Take this back to them. And then he'd say, well, that guy's crazy. He's not going to go for it. Yeah, it all makes sense, but he's crazy. I said, you know what? Tell him I'm crazy too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works.
And how'd it work out? Did the money come up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look at him. He's smiling.
Look at him. He doesn't have to plug a gig today. That's how well it went.
I tell him I'm crazy. I won't take the deal.
Yeah.
I'm just as crazy.
And and this chumming up to other dictators kind of really bothers me. I mean, in one idea, keep your enemies closer. It's the whole Godfather concept.
Yeah. But that has to do with strategy and planning. And you really think that Trump is that strategic?
No. And neither's who's the basketball player that went over to North Korea.
Rodman.
Dennis Rodman. Yeah. He's a good diplomat. Crying because he was good friends with the guy,
Well, they say that the closing argument, this is closing arguments week, and they're saying that the closing argument that Kamala's making is about policy. She's talking about policy, where if you look at commercial after commercial after commercial in the battleground states that the Trump campaign is running, it is either trans stuff or it is anti-immigrant. That's it. That's all they're running over and over and over. And the trans stuff, I had not heard what he's saying about trans. I did not know this till I saw this yesterday. I saw like a barrage of it. Actually, I think Kimmel might have shown it last night. Kimmel showed it last night when he took his whole monologue to speak to Republicans who are willing to listen and go, listen, and we made jokes, but it was more just, here's why we can't have this guy. And he had a bunch of clips. But the one that I hadn't heard that he apparently said several times is that people are sending their kids to public schools.
You can't even say it.
Go ahead, say it.
They're sending their kids to public schools and as a boy, and then they come home and they're a girl because they're doing sex change operations at school. Now, and he makes the point that's true. You can't even send a peanut butter sandwich to a public school, and we're supposed to believe that your son that you sent off is getting surgery. And by the way, surgery sometime between 9 and 3. Okay, so that there is during the school day, so that he's completely recovered enough, so that he is now a she and can come walking in the house, and it's insanity.
You almost get the feeling that Trump sits around thinking, how far can I go and see how these people will still believe me? As far as he goes, it's like that wasn't far enough. Let's see if I can take it a little further and see if they'll still. And he just keeps taking it further and further and further. And there's no limit. There's no place where he can go where his people just don't buy it.
Yeah.
Well, that's one other thing.
That started with that trans story started with this woman who is like a Moms for Liberty mom who just made it up. And then she parades her kids on stage when she talks about it. And they're like, and then my classmate wants to be a cat and has a litter box at school. And I'm like, none of that is happening. Like little kids play at recess and pretend to be things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no one's, they don't have money for pencils. How are they going to have money to do surgery? Like the teachers are buying school supplies.
I substitute teach every once in a while. And I've never seen the surgery room at the school. And I had a friend when I was growing up, she thought she was a horse for 5 years. And so we petted her, she grew out of it, and it's, the whole thing is just so bizarre. I don't see it. I don't know it. I don't hear it. You talk to kids, if they're acting around, just.
But kids have imaginations and they say stuff. Although the story you were just talking about the kid who wants to be a cat, it just gave me reminded me of a horrible memory. When my children's mother, when they were young, put a sandbox out in the backyard, for them to play with. Because that was just cute, and I always wanted a sandbox, a big yard, and the whole thing. And apparently, the neighborhood cats and the stray cats would use it as a litter box. We didn't know that until all three of our kids got ringworm.
Oh,
and that's where they got ringworm, and we're asking the doctor, how the hell did they get ringworm? Well, do they have a sandbox? Yeah. Okay, well, that's why. Because all the neighborhood cats are playing in it, then they're playing in it, they end up with ringworm.
Yeah.
So that's my public service annountip today. Keep your kids out of sandboxes or cover.
That was always the problem with sandboxes. They're fun for about a week.
Yeah, Martha Stewart's selling that cat litter now, pretty kitty litter, so you can tell if you get ringworm now. All the different colors and stuff. Go, Martha.
What color is ringworm?
I have no idea.
I didn't even know black people could get ringworm. That was the first thing that surprised me. There's certain things, black people can get head lice. That's true. Did you know that?
Yeah, but that's totally not true.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I have read this in legitimate medical publications. That it has something. I forget what the rationale is, but for some reason,
the lice cling to the product,
Velcro.
right? And so our hair is so dry that it doesn't retain that product the same way straight hair is, because it has all this, like a whole coil it has to go down. And so our hair doesn't retain the product the way straight hair does. And so it's easier for lice to cling to straight hair full of product.
Okay, now see, I thought it was because the lice were racist.
Yeah, they are too. There is also that.
And just didn't want to live in those neighborhoods. That's what it is.
Take that racism. I am fine with that racism. You can hate me all you want if you are lice.
All right, on the topic of
makes you weaker.
on the topic of racism, did any of you see any or all or part of Trump's Nuremberg rally on Sunday?
I just read some of the comments that the comic made.
Why don't you hold on for a second? Because I think, Charlene, have we got that clip? If we do, let's just go ahead and play. Everybody's heard about it. Let's actually just play it.
Really crazy. We're right there by a wide open border. Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this.
Wow.
It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies, too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country. Republicans are the party with a good sense of humor. There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Now, again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody. This isn't exactly a perfect comedy setup. There's some people here.
Actually, I don't think I think that's enough. Tony Hinchcliffe, who well, I'm two parts to this story. The comic's name is Tony Hinchcliffe. I'd never heard of him before, but apparently he's got a podcast with hundreds of thousands of listeners, and he's a regular at the Comedy Store, which surprises me because what he just did was so incredibly hacky. Geraldo Rivera, who was very close friends with Trump during his first term, and personal friends with him before that, and he would call him at the White House, and he had turned on Trump before earlier, prior to this. But when this came on, he gave an interview to Ari Melber on, I believe it was Ari Melber on MSNBC, where he said this is the end of his campaign. This is the beginning of the end of the Trump campaign, because he needs Pennsylvania to win. And Allentown, Pennsylvania is a very important region of that state to win in order to carry that state. And there are a couple of 100,000 Puerto Ricans who are, I should say, Americans of Puerto Rican descent who live there. And he was just furious. And he either tweeted or posted, I'm not sure what it is, while this guy's performing. And this will get bleeped. fuck these racists is what it is that he posted. And he said, Latino men of character. He said to have some pride in your heritage, and I'm paraphrasing, and in your ancestors, because a vote for Trump is a vote for this. Now, this comic, Tony Hinchcliffe, everybody was saying that that there should be an apology from Trump, and Trump did not apologize. And he claimed he knew nothing about it, didn't hear it, the campaign's distancing itself. Here's the thing that's not getting a lot of play. That script for that set was vetted. It was vetted. And the reason I know, I figured it was vetted before I read that it was, because Tom Sawyer, who I mentioned earlier, is our EP on our program here, and I we're going to do a big benefit for Kamala. And the thing we couldn't do was do it for the actual campaign, because then we've all got to be vetted, and every word that every comic said would have had to have been vetted, because if somebody said something that blew back on the campaign, you don't want that. So they vetted that script, and the only thing they took out was a joke where he calls Kamala the C word.
Whoa.
So they took that out, but all of this other stuff was left in, including a joke that he did about, for Halloween, he got I'm paraphrasing again, got together with an African-American friend and they carved watermelon. At least if it was even a clever racist joke, but
he also talked about Jewish people. He also talked about Arabs. He did a Travis Kelce joke where he said he's the next OJ. So that's implying violence against Taylor Swift.
Wow.
Yeah. So he went even further.
Well, they said that
no one was left out.
One of the things that Geraldo said is a factor in knowing how much blowback there is from this is that on Sunday or Monday, for the first time, more people Googled Tony Hinchcliffe than Googled Taylor Swift for the first time.
Wow.
That's how bad it is. Now, here's why I bring this up. There's several reasons I bring this up, but here's what I'm curious about with you guys. Hinchcliffe is not going to apologize. They've come to him and said, will you apologize? You see how many people you offended? You may have hurt the Trump campaign. Some are saying you may have just sunk. You may have just torpedoed. Where, when you're talking about 1-2 point race, you may have just torpedoed the campaign. And he says his idol, and the reason he became a comic, is because of Don Rickles.
Yeah.
And Don Rickles said everything. And he said that because of Don Rickles, you never, ever, under any circumstances, apologize for a joke. Do you agree with that?
No.
I want to just say whoever booked this guy is the person that should be responsible for the apology, because you wouldn't book Bobby Slayton at a bar mitzvah. You know what I'm saying? You would, and Bobby would always say, I insult everybody, and Rickles was the same way. I insult everybody. But I saw Rickles open for Kool and the Gang up in Tahoe, and
Kool and the Gang with Rickles.
Oh yeah, and he Kool and the Gang opened, and then Rickles went on, said not bad for a bunch of N-words, and lost the crowd completely. Took 40 minutes for him to get the crowd back, and he was pretty apologetic. You know what I mean? So whether he said that or not, because I was sitting there with my mouth agape going, he just said what? because the band had everybody on their feet and cool and go, well, celebrate, good times come on. And then Rickles was just bam and came right out of the gate. And I thought, this was a bad combo. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the booker should be to blame. And maybe this guy, it won't sink what about his career? Is this going to boost his career and people are going to go?
Well, actually, it might, because of the fact that he's known as a right-wing comic. And he plays Republican events and right-wing events apparently all the time. So this is, if anything, he's now hell. Now he'll get a show after Gutfeld on Fox.
Oh, you're probably right.
He'll be the late show now on Fox. Is what'll happen to him. But your material was always very smart and very funny, and never anything I've ever seen you do in the 30 years, I can't believe I've known you, was ever offensive.
40.
Have you
40?
You know longer than I have. So had you ever done anything that you thought you should apologize for, or have you ever had to apologize for a joke?
And that's question two, Rob.
Well, there's a couple things. One, early in my career, when I was just starting out, I had these awful jokes that got laughs most of the time, and it was making fun of women who are heavy. And I was just starting out, so you're at that point where you're just flailing around trying to find stuff that gets laughs. One night I was on at the Holy City Zoo, and I did those jokes, to close because they normally were surefire laughs, and I got nothing. And I looked around the crowd, and the crowd was hating those jokes. And I felt like, on my way home, just driving home, I was thinking, the awful thing about that was not failing to get laughs. The awful thing was realizing I don't believe in those jokes. I didn't think they were funny myself. There wasn't anything I thought was important to say. Mm-hmm. I couldn't stand behind them. Now, I don't think I owed anybody an apology, except for myself, really. So I just vowed from then on that if I did a joke from then on, I would do something. I had to believe in it. I had to think it was funny. Mm-hmm. I had to think I could stand behind it. And if I didn't get a laugh, I could be okay with that. And I don't know how that plays into it. The other thing is the idea that you should never apologize for a joke is, it's like any other rule in comedy. It's made to be broken. Remember Bob Saget?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, of course.
Saget had this pit in his routine where, he would do this really offensive joke and the audience would moan and boo him, and then he would apologize. And then he would say something even more offensive and apologize for that. Yeah. And in trying to dig himself out, he'd do something more offensive and then apologize for that. Then he started apologizing for apologizing so much. And then he finished with this thing of like, I'm apologizing so much, it's really obnoxious. He said, I used to hate obnoxious people, and now I'm their king. So Saget,
I don't know. I've listened, I have sat in the back of the Punchline and Cobb's and all these clubs and listened to white comics say horribly negative racist stereotypes about Black people and gotten laughs from the room. And in my head, I'm like, fuck that guy. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say that word. No, screw that guy.
Don't worry about it.
But I've never told them not to tell the joke.
Right.
It just changed the way I interacted with them in the green room. But I've never told them not to tell the joke. But I think with Tony, that was a political rally. That wasn't a comedy club. Yeah. And I've seen his stuff. Like I saw him where he was introduced by an Asian comic, and it was just 5 minutes of the most racist, anti-Asian, like mocking his voice, mocking the way Chinese people speak. It was disgusting. And in my head, I was like, screw that guy. He's so racist. But so I wasn't surprised that they had him open. I don't think they should have had him open at all. I don't think it was the right place.
Well, didn't you? What do you mean it wasn't the right place? Didn't you hear the rest of the rally? Of course,
the rest of the rally.
Of course, it was the right place.
Yeah, but
that was tame compared to some of the stuff that was.
Yeah, the people talking about slaughtering Democrats.
That's just crazy. But I will say, there is one time in my career that I've ever apologized, and I'm not going to say I've never offended anybody. All of us have offended somebody. Because if you say Sunday's the best day of the week, you're going to offend somebody who thinks it's Monday. So we've all offended people, and que sera. But actually, where I felt badly about having done it and felt that I owed an apology was when I started doing Not a Genuine Black Man. The opening part of that it's the first maybe 4 or 5 minutes of it is stand up and race-based stand up about what's black and what's not. And I that show opened in 2004, which was, we're in the war in the Middle East. It's a couple of years after 9/11. And I had a joke. I don't remember the setup, but the joke was, the punchline of it was that I called the FBI because my daughter got out of the shower with a towel on her head. And I always had laughs. I never thought anything else about it until I was asked to do the show at a high school. And I did the show at the high school, and it got laughs, big laughs, like always. And then afterwards, these two Middle Eastern young women, probably 16 or 17, said, can we talk to you for a second? That joke that you did, people make fun of us. People make fun of us, and it's really, really hard. Because, they call us terrorists, and I've never been to the Middle East, we've been here for 4 generations. However, we get blamed for it. And it's just something for you to think about. And I just stopped immediately, and I go, I had never thought of that. And I apologize. I'm really, really sorry if I just made your life harder or something stupid that I said. And I never said that. I never told that joke again. I never, ever told that joke again. It never will. And it was a stupid, now looking back at it, it was a stupid, ignorant, racist joke to tell. But, in the context of the fact that I guess when you're at war with somebody, that the feeling has always been you can say whatever you want. I mean, listen to like Bob Hope or Jack Benny during World War II. When it's the Japs this and the Krauts that and all of this kind of stuff. But that's the only time I've ever apologized. And I'm glad that I did, and to this day when I think about it, I wince, and it makes me feel terrible, quite frankly. Even this is years later, and it still bothers me that how many people did I not offend? Again, I don't care if I offended you. How many people did I hurt by telling that joke who didn't come up to me and say that was really painful, and you just made my life a little bit harder.
Yeah. That's hard. A while back, I saw something with Sarah Silverman, and she was apologizing for jokes she had done earlier in her career. And, it made me respect her more. So I didn't think if she was making a mistake or she was violating some rule. The way she handled it, I thought was really cool. And so I think there are times, and certainly if you're a comedian, I mean, I've tried this in my private life, with my family and friends and so forth, to take that attitude. I don't apologize for any joke. Well, that's a good way to lose friends and family, because there are times in your private life when I've done jokes that are just crappy jokes, that I've done at people's expense because, it was there for the taking, and as a comedian, I couldn't resist.
Yes.
And I've had to apologize.
Well, we've all done that. Because you're thinking, because comics, your mind's always going, and I mean, I say something stupid every day, and at some point you'll have to go, okay. So
Brian,
maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Brian, you know that I open for a lot of rock bands, so I got a lot of that screaming at me, "We hate you, you suck." And you get that because you're opening for a band; they're there to see the band, and I'm just the cartoon before the movie kind of thing, and I. There were times when, like somebody would throw a handful of change at me, in the front row.
Wow.
When you're playing a big crowd, there could be 100 people in front of you insulting the crap out of you, but the 9,000 people behind them can't hear them because they're pointing at you. They don't hear it. So my rule was, if somebody yelled something really offensive to me, is I would repeat what they said through the microphone so everybody in the stadium knew what this person said to me. And then they gave me carte blanche to just insult the crap out of them and get huge cheers. And it was mostly about their shirt or their face or, something. I was picking on one particular person who was interrupting the show. Now, in that context, I think making fun of people But I don't think I ever did anything based on their race. You know, it didn't have anything to do with that. It was just them being stupid. You know what I mean? I mean, you've been heckled, haven't you?
Oh, sure. We've all been heckled. I'm trying to think. Like you, for a lot of artists and a lot of more individual artists than bands. I mean, I did some bands. Sure. Some bands I had no business doing. Like I opened for Blue. You opened for too. I opened for Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah. And that was the worst band.
Brutal. Brutal.
It was horrible. Hey,
you saying things about my. Yeah. And you didn't have a guitar.
I didn't have a guitar. I mean, they hated me. I mean, they just hated my guts. Two worst ones I ever did was that, and I opened for Julio Iglesias at Donald Trump's Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. It was me and Julio, and the audience. And I was warned before. I needed money because my wife was expecting our third child, and there was some loophole in the insurance, or some of the insurance was just being changed or something, but it wasn't going to cover the birth, and it cost $10,000. So I told my agent I needed $10,000, and he calls me up and goes, "I got you a $10,000 gig. It's 3 nights to open for Julio Iglesias in Atlantic City." And I said, usually when I do these Atlantic City gigs, it's like half that. So why is this so much? And he says, "Because they're not going to understand you." I go, "What are you talking about?" he goes, "Because the entire audience is Puerto Rican. And they all speak Spanish, and they're not going to, it's 5,000, it was a 5,000 seat room." And he goes, "And they're not going to understand you." And I go, "Why don't you get like Paul Rodriguez or somebody who they represented also at the time? Why don't you get Paul Rodriguez or somebody, they'll understand." He goes, "He's not available, and I know you need the money." So, and it was horrible. I'm like, God, it was like one of those sets where you're 3 minutes in and you think you're at 20.
Yeah.
You think you're at 20 and you're looking at what that's all that's all I got. And 5,000 people not listening. It was awful. But I never had an experience though. I've done some big rooms, but not as big as you did. Like when you were with Huey Lewis during this, was it the sports tour?
Yeah.
You were with them. I mean, you were playing arenas, weren't you?
Oh yeah, 10 to 30,000 people. I mean, it was just insane. But I let the monitor guy do my introduction. I wouldn't let the
that's right.
The disc jockey. "Hey guys, you ready to rock and roll?" Well, first, because that just kills you right there.
No. Here's what I did.
Hey, this guy's touring with us. He's a good friend of ours. He's been on the tour with us. You're gonna love him. Let's hear it for Dr. Gonzo. And I'd get probably 30 seconds to be funny. So I got in there right quick, and if I got that laugh, then it was and I was probably about a 96%er. I mean, there were a couple of shows that were. A couple of the ice rinks were tough when it's general admission and they're all pushed up against the platform, and then it collapsed and you have no security between you and the crowd. It's pretty scary sometimes.
But now what I did was I had I had a radio talk show at the time too. So I had the engineer who also did voiceover stuff record my introduction.
Oh, perfect.
Me. And so I just brought it in and they would play it over the loudspeaker. I only played arena. I played, let's see, probably the biggest place I played Cincinnati. I played Riverfront Arena with Natalie Cole. We did 3 shows, and it was a private party. 3 pack show for Procter & Gamble. And if somebody would have heckled me, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is I would have done. So, but now, we're getting inside baseball.
Sure we are, but I knew I'd draw you in. Talk about your life.
You sucked me in. But this, this goes along with the Trump philosophy that he got from Roy Cohn, his mentor.
Deny that. And that's where rock and roll comes in, because all these guys would cheat on their wives on the road. And the whole deal was deny, attack, and never admit defeat, and cost a lot of marriages. But it's the same thing. Deny everything.
What that reminds me of is, it's not just rock and roll. Comics have a bad reputation for that on the road as well. Yeah. And there's a comic, and I'm not going to say who it is, obviously, who was a married guy who's a real playboy on the road. And his wife used to unpack his suitcase. Maybe you heard the story because it's like lore now. So he'd get home off the road and his wife would unpack his suitcase. And so she unpacks a suitcase, and there is a pair of lacy panties in his suitcase. And so, he's in like the living room or something. She walks in carrying these lacy panties, doesn't say a word, just walks in, carries them, and sticks them in front of his face. And he goes, those guys.
Blaming it on the other comics.
Those guys. Yeah. But it's like Obama said that all politicians lie. The problem with these people is that they lie. Most people, these politicians, they will lie when you fact check them or when you catch them in the lie. They will then I misspoke, or I misinformation, or they'll pivot and talk about something else. Whereas these people, Donald Trump is still doubling down on Haitians eat dogs.
Sure. Yeah.
Still on Fox News, Fox News, they checked him. They said, no, it's been debunked. Well,
people are saying that. People are saying that.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said, I heard it. Like, it's not my fault I'm saying it. I heard somebody else say it first.
It's the same thing. You're right. They, them.
Yeah.
All right. Did anybody catch Kamala's closing argument?
I did.
And what do you think of it? And before we get to it, let me preface it with this. She has been getting a lot of grief the last maybe 4 or 5 days from high-profile Democrats, from Democratic donors, PACs, whatnot, saying that the campaign has been giving too much oxygen and too much energy into leaning into Donald Trump as a fascist and leaning into John Kelly's remarks, which I got to tell you, they should be what Kelly had to say should be enough to be disqualifying. But they're saying that's a mistake, and that what she needed to be focusing on was policy. Because you saying that Donald Trump's a fascist and Donald Trump loves Hitler, and even though it's his chief of staff, it's water off a duck's back. So given that and keeping that in mind, well, first of all, do you agree with that? Should she have leaned into it? And second of all, what do you think of the speech?
I think she should lean into it. I think people are going about their lives and they don't follow the news like they used to. People on TikTok tell me that they're getting news from my TikToks, and I am a comedian. Like, a bunch of people were like, oh, I didn't know Bannon was out of prison. Like, until I did a whole post about how gross he is. Mm-hmm. And people aren't hearing it. This is essential. It's important that people understand this. And the Democratic Party, as someone who's worked in politics and had to deal with them when I'm working on campaigns, they have a formula. And if someone breaks the formula, they freak out. They're constantly freaking out and wringing their hands and screaming about oh my God, everything's going wrong, even when things are going great. There's something about this party that they're always in panic mode. So they don't, and just think about it. How long has she been the nominee? Since August 19th.
Wow. That's all. Wow.
August 19th. Look at what she's done in that time. Mm-hmm. Look at the campaign she's put together. That is amazing. She's not getting any credit for it. She needs to lean into what a danger he is to this country. That we are not going to have a democracy if he becomes president of the United States. We will have a dictator, and life as we know it will severely change.
But see, here's the problem. The problem is that on the left, any Republican in the last 20 years or 30 years who has run for president on the left has been called the fascist, or on the left has been called the dictator. And I think that could be part of the problem. Because
the everyday person isn't paying attention to that language. They don't pay attention to the politics in that way. Yeah. They're getting up, they're going to the grocery store, they're living their lives. My cousin, she doesn't know what's going on. She's getting up in the morning. I hate it when it does that. She's getting up in the morning. She's taking her kids to school. She's going to the grocery store. She's doing all this stuff. And then she comes over here and I'm like, girl, did you watch the news? Did you see what happened? She has no idea. She did not know anything about Project 2025 until I was like, you need to Google it. You need to read it because it directly affects us. And there's a lot of people who don't have the right information. And I think this is critical. It's critical to know that he's a fascist. We pay attention, right? Everyday people, I go to Starbucks and I'm talking to that person. They just want to know what kind of drink I want. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And especially here in Tennessee, these people are so misinformed. They have no idea what's going on.
I'm shocked.
They just believe whatever Fox News tells them. Fox News is not talking about it.
Yeah, that's
So-
Illinois. Illinois is the same way, outside of the big urban areas.
Mhm.
And this whole Bannon thing, I saw he got released, and it looks like they have showers in the prisons.
You ever like look at somebody and go, he looks like he smells?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
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 He
Who's that
looks
gal
like
that does?
dandruff.
Who's the gal that does all the body odor commercials on TV? That gal, she looks like she's got a smell. It's weird.
Rob, your thoughts, your 2 cents on this.
Here's the thing. I know a guy who's a Trumper. So I was talking to him one day and I said, you know that he lies all the time, right? And he goes, oh yeah, I know that. And I said, well, how can you support a guy who lies all the time? He said, I just think it's funny because it makes liberals mad. So to me, I don't think it goes any further than that for a lot of people who support Trump. So when liberals complain about him being a fascist, for being a dictator, for wanting to throw out the Constitution, for wanting to be a strongman, whatever, as long as it's making liberals mad, I think they think that's cool. That's what's really cool about him. So I don't think you're going to change the mind of any Trump supporters, with any kind of information. I think it's sort of a fool's errand to think that they just need to be informed.
Well, I think it's not Trump supporters. I think they're going after. I think they're going after those
independents.
Independents, but also Republicans.
Yeah, Nikki Haley Republicans.
Yeah.
That's who I think.
Libertarians.
That's who I think they should be appealing to. And from that standpoint, I thought she did a brilliant job. I think she's doing exactly what she needs to do, going after those voters, people who are still persuadable, people who are not diehard Trump supporters. So I thought she did a brilliant job. I thought she was very inclusive. She appealed to all the different kinds of voters who are still out there and still up for grabs. So that's what I thought. I thought it was great. What'd you think?
I thought it was great too. I thought she did exactly what it is she needed to do. I thought that the location, doing it at the Ellipse, which is where Donald Trump incited the mob of January 6th, I thought was brilliant. And I saw something today that just made me chuckle, and that is, Trump's been running around for a couple of months saying that he had more people at the Ellipse that day listening to him speak than Martin Luther King had for the I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so ridiculous.
Well, I mean,
let me 1 second. So it turns out he had 53,000 and she had 75,000. That's the number right now. So his head is about to explode. But I thought she started with it. Yeah, she started with, here's why I'm here, and then she went into policy. So I thought she did what she needed to.
John, I think she's done a great job from beginning to end. Her convention was brilliant. Her stump speech is brilliant. The speech she gave last night, her debate with Trump, she wiped the floor with him.
Which is why I wouldn't debate her again.
Right.
That's why. That's definitely why. She's educated. She's got interesting heritage. She's a prosecutor, and if he loses this election, he's facing prison time. Mm-hmm. He's losing it because he knows he might end up behind bars.
That's what he's running. That's what he's running for. He's running to stay out of prison.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
So he can recuse himself or whatever. But I still think Rob had the right point. People listen to him because he makes liberals mad, and I feel that around here too when I hear people support Trump. And it's like, what are you listening to?
How is that gonna help them with their bills? How is that gonna help them with their health care? Voting the libs isn't going to improve the quality of their life. No. That's the thing I don't understand.
And you can make all these promises, but until you're in office, then you got to deal with Congress. You got to do, there's just no way things are just going to switch over and things are going to be cheaper and my life's beautiful. And I mean, it takes a lot of work. It would be nice to know what cabinet people are bringing in too when you vote for these presidential nominees, because we don't know, who you're going to be surrounded by. Who's he going to be? If he wins, who's he going to be picking to?
Well, all the Project 2025 authors are going to be in his cabinet.
All the Fox commentators are going to be head of the Defense Department.
Well, I'll tell you this, is that his son, Eric, You know,
Yeah.
the smart one of the two. Eric
really?
his job during the transition is to vet potential appointees for their loyalty to Trump.
Oh, for their loyalty.
For their loyalty to Trump. That's what his job is to vet them all and find out how loyal they are to Trump. If they're not sufficiently loyal to Trump, they are disqualified.
My pillow guy.
But
Supposedly,
the Trump supporters, everything they do is counter to their own best interests. They all claim to be really angry about inflation, right? But what is Trump planning to do? Mass deportation and tariffs, which will make inflation go through the roof.
Right.
mhm.
It'll explode the cost of healthcare for elderly people. You know, it'll explode the cost of food, the cost of housing. So everything they do is counter to their interests. You know, but as long as it's making liberals mad, I guess they're okay with it.
It's worth it.
And that's the
Because they don't
problem.
have
That's
the
the real
information
problem.
they
You know,
need.
it's not the Tony Hinchcliffe's jokes. It's that the racism turns into these policies like mass deportation, which would crash our economy. The real
It would cost
secret is-
over $1 trillion to do that.
yeah, and we need immigrants. Our population is
course we do.
shrinking. Our workforce is shrinking. We need immigrants for our economy to thrive. And it's like Springfield, Ohio is like a microcosm of the United States. They needed those Haitians to come in because their economy, they needed workers. They went out and got those Haitians to come in, and now their economy is thriving because they brought these Haitians in. And by all reports, these Haitians are great workers. They report to work. They work hard, et cetera, et cetera. Their economy is thriving. And then these lies they told about these Haitians, the whole city was basically shut down because of all.
Who are here legally, by the way? Who are here legally? We should.
Yeah, they're here legally. They were brought here legally.
I love how Trump
They had to
keeps saying,
shut down all the schools. They had to shut down the government because of all these death threats. So the problem is this racism and these lies have real effects on people and also on our economy.
All right. Speaking
I
of
love
the
how
economy,
Trump keeps saying that the Haitians are here on probation. So he literally thinks that they are criminals that were on probation in Haiti who came here. He doesn't understand that it is an immigration probation that's related to the Temporary Protective Act.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't get that. So I think he also thinks that he keeps saying lunatics from other countries because he thinks that when you seek asylum, you came from an asylum.
Right.
I think he does. I think he's that stupid.
I didn't think about that, but that explains a lot. It's like he going, where does he keep getting this? Because we're talking about the economy, and the Economist, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. These are all conservative publications, and they have all published stories in the last 7 to 10 days touting the economy, saying that we are in America right now. The economy is literally the envy of the world, that we are in what is literally the best economy of our lifetimes, how there is record unemployment, how there are higher wages for the middle class, and it's because of stimulus programs and things that were put in place by the Biden-Harris administration.
That's right.
So my question is this: why the hell doesn't anybody know? I saw the New Yorker today said that Biden's transformation of the economy rivals Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. So why have we not heard any of it? Why, instead we have to listen to, J.D. Vance stand in front of eggs, talking about how expensive eggs are when they're like way cheaper. There's a sign on them behind them saying that they're way cheaper than he's claiming they are. Why do we not know this?
I think most
the
people
media is not covering it. The media is not covering.
But I think a lot of people do know that the economy is doing very well. But Trumpers, are not going to admit that. And then you also have people on the far left who will say the economy is not good until everybody has lots and lots of money. And we live in a capitalist society. And the sad thing is that in a capitalist society, there are always winners and there's always going to be people who are going to suffer because of, they're on the losing end of the capitalist system. So if you're going to judge any economy based on the people at the bottom, there's never going to be an economy that's going to be successful. There will always be people at the bottom. The only thing you can do to solve that is to redistribute wealth, which is what, people on the right hate. But you got to take some taxes from people at the top and you've got to redistribute it down to the bottom and let it cycle its way back up.
Yeah,
Money
trickle
trickles
up.
up. It does not trickle down.
Yeah. You're correct on that. You gotta, if you give poor people money, they'll spend it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what fuels everything. So give us more money.
Well, what's interesting, just an aside, is, the majority of people who buy lottery tickets in states that have a lottery are people who live at or below the poverty line. And those who win are usually I read a stat, something like 70-80% of them have lost it all. They're broke like within 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Within 18 months of winning the lottery, which makes no sense. I mean, what is it?
Well, you got cousins, you got family, you got kids, and here's 1,000, here's 1,000, here's 1,000, here's 1,000. You're trying to help people out because you were lucky, and because that's how you think. You have empathy for other people, and you see other people struggling. And if you were struggling and you got all that money, you'd probably be handing some of it out.
No,
maybe not me. No.
Nah.
But if you look,
I got mine.
if you look at the
too.
statistics, if you look at statistics and you see like every time we have a 3-day holiday, record numbers of people are out traveling, restaurants are thriving, entertainment venues are thriving, the airlines are thriving, somebody knows we're having a good economy because a lot of people are out there living it up.
Things are so good. Southwest is making us pick a seat.
Yeah,
They're making us pick a seat in advance now with an assignment. That's how.
But even Trumpers, if Trumpers that are complaining about the economy, they have money to send this guy for his legal bills.
Yeah, and his sneakers and his NFT.
Trading cards.
That's what I'm saying. What are they, NFTs?
New cryptocurrency.
Crypto,
or his silver medallions that are $100. That's 1 ounce of Troy silver that you can get an ounce of Troy silver for something. What 1 ounce of silver was something
it's like $20 worth of silver for $100.
Yeah.
Or the
Here's what's funny: you got
watches.
Trump told his people that he was so rich you would never need their money.
That's right.
The next thing you know, he's asking him for money to pay his legal bills because he got busted for fraud.
Yeah.
And these people actually send him their money. I mean, I don't know how much you can say about his followers than that. Nobody humiliates them worse than he does.
Well, see, what people forget is that, and I had to explain this to somebody yesterday. This started as a publicity stunt that went awry. This was a publicity stunt. I mean, if you go back and look at interviews of him during the Republican debates in 2015 and 2016, he didn't expect that he was going to do as well as he did. He just thought it would help boost his brand. And he, was shocked that he was a front runner. And then on election night, nobody was more surprised than him. Nobody was more surprised than you. I mean, they were so unprepared. There's a story about during the transition, the beginning of the transition, Jared Kushner is talking to somebody in the Obama administration, some official, and they're walking to the White House, and all the staffers are all over the place. And Kushner asks, okay, so after the transition, how many of these employees are going to still be here, and how many do we need to fill? And they go, they're all going. None of them are going to be here unless the new president reappoints them. None of them are. I mean, so how do you run for president and then not know that you're only going to have a couple of months, and you're going to have completely staffed the government, the executive branch of the government, and you don't know that you got to do that? That tells me this is not a serious guy. He had no idea he was going to win.
Well, he's still like that. He's still like that. He knows nothing about being president, but even worse, he shows no interest. He seems to have zero interest in learning anything about it.
Well, they said he didn't read his briefings. The president gets daily briefings, and
I think he's a fake it till you make it guy, like on a daily. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some people who just like kind of skate through life. And he's one of those guys who's like, I don't need to know anything. I'll just figure it out. And then he trusts that all the people he pays are going to figure it out for him. And he never has to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And now it just doesn't apply to being president of the most powerful country on the planet,
Here, as we are in the final days, they are really ramping up. I mean the Harris campaign or PAC supporting the Democrats are really ramping up ads with abortion horror stories and women telling their stories about, I was going to die, or I saw one that brought me to tears. His husband and wife talking about how they were in a place where they were forced that they knew the baby was going to be, if the baby even came out alive, he wouldn't live more than a minute or two, and that they had to go through the whole labor and the whole thing, So, just like the other question about fascism, there are some who are saying that they don't lean too much into that because there are voters who will be turned off. It just seems to me it would be the opposite. I mean, any place where abortion rights have been on the ballot, for God's sake, it was Iowa. I mean, places where you wouldn't think that an abortion referendum in Ohio, they tried all kinds of procedural stuff to keep it from being a referendum. So, how big a part do you think that abortion rights and reproductive rights are going to play into this election? Because keep in mind, in 2016, 52% of white women, and I'm told that in 2020 it was a higher percentage of white women voted for Trump, who brags about overturning Roe because he says everybody wanted it.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court didn't overturn Roe until Biden was president. And a lot of people think that it's Biden's fault that Roe was overturned because he was president when the Supreme Court made that ruling. And that goes back to the lack of education and information that people have in this country. I think Michelle Obama at the Kalamazoo speech made the best argument for why abortion is essential. It is healthcare, and that's why it's on the ballot. And that a vote for Trump is a vote against the women in your life. Because so I have a friend who he's a black Trumper, and he's constantly DMing me and my cousin stuff, and we're like, stop sending. And he's always bringing up the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, right? Everything's about the laptop. And then we were like, whatever, we don't even know if we want to be friends with you anymore because you're advocating against us as women and against our safety and our health. This is healthcare. And he had the nerve to say to us, which is a lot of men think this way, well, you guys are too old to have kids anyway, so why do you care? And it's more than that. These drugs are for more than just abortions. They treat other things. There's, women need birth control because they're going to go after birth control too. They're going after IVF. They're going after all of it. So they just want women to be like cattle, just breeding. And so it is essential, and it's breaking up families. I mean, all through social media, there are women posting tears about their husband canceling out their vote because their husband voted for Trump or their father voted for Trump, and they feel betrayed, like their father or husband voted against them and doesn't care about them. And there are so many women who realize that abortion is healthcare, and women are dying right now because of this overturn.
And that's not hyperbole. You're not being hyperbolic at all. I mean, literally, women are dying.
That's such a weird argument, though, to say that a woman over 50 shouldn't care about abortion. It's kind of like saying my house isn't on fire. Why should I care about your house?
Yeah, exactly.
It's called empathy. It's called wanting something for other people that you would want for yourself.
And that's the problem with the MAGA base. They lack empathy, just like Trump lacks empathy. So they don't care. And the Heritage Foundation, this whole thing is not about their religion. This is about more white babies being born, because the majority of women who terminate pregnancies are white.
Did you ever see that study that Malcolm Gladwell did in one of his books? I can't remember what the book was. That we had a real big drop in crime in America in the 1990s, in the mid to late 1990s, a real big drop in crime. And they were trying to figure out why did crime suddenly dip. And what he hypothesized was it was exactly 18 years after Roe v. Wade became the law of the land. And the women who in a lot of cases have abortion because they, for whatever reason, don't want to have the child, are in a circumstance where they can't take care of they're poor, they're uneducated, they're not in a situation where they can take care of a kid, and they are raising children who are who are statistically more likely to, in those years when they hit their teens and early 20s, be involved in crime. And so, therefore, because of the fact that Roe was the law of the land, there were a lot of people who would not have had who would have had babies that would have. I'm trying to be as delicate as I can. That's what I'm saying. So basically, what you're saying is there's a whole generation of criminals not born. That's what it was he was saying. That's what it is that he said. Now, I don't know that I buy that or not, but I don't know if there's any credence to that idea. But you think about, this is not every woman or most women who have abortions, but there are a lot of women who have them because of the fact that they would be high at a child they have would be at high risk for being engaged in illegal activity because of the fact that they can't take care of them, they can't educate them, they can't feed them, they are not living in circumstances where you can do anything else to survive but commit illegal acts.
But abortion's more than just an unwanted pregnancy, and I think that's what the people who helped Roe get overturned don't realize that, because they're men. And they're evangelical white men who don't understand other people or care to understand other people's circumstances. It's just about their religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So they don't understand that there's the ectopic pregnancy.
Right.
There's there's all these other situations where in the life of the mother or the child that's a victim of incest or rape, like those are situations that I don't think they thought this through. And they're not pro-life; they're pro-birth.
They're pro-birth.
They're forced birth.
No one's taking care of people.
They don't.
Sorry,
I bridle at making it a gender issue, because if you look at surveys and polls, something like 60% of women think that women should have the right to choose, and it's something like 58% of men. So it's not a gender issue. Just as many men as women believe women should have the right to choose. It's a party issue, and you have, Trump, when he ran in 2016. Said he would overturn Roe v. Wade and said that women should be punished for seeking abortions.
Yeah.
And he still got 50% of white women voted for him. So, I see these things online where they say men should butt out and then men should have no opinion. My opinion is nobody should have an opinion. Only the woman and her doctor or her clergyman or whoever she wants to bring in to consult, her husband or boyfriend, whatever, should be making that decision. No, not men, not women, not anybody else.
I mean, make it about something other than abortion. I mean, look, let's look at it as you've got some kind of. I'll tell you a personal story. I found out I've been having trouble breathing through my nose for the last 4 weeks, and I finally went to the doctor yesterday, and apparently I've got polyps growing in my nose. And they put me on some medicine to see if it shrinks some, but if it doesn't shrink, I'm going to have surgery, or we're going to have to talk about surgery. So, should that be my decision whether I want to? There are side effects. I don't know what the possible complications could be, but should that be my decision whether or not I want to do it, or should it be up to the government? So if you put it, in terms like that, maybe guys who don't understand might understand. If you put it in terms of, any medical procedure you want to have, and if you decide you want to have a vasectomy, do you want to decide that, or should the government decide that for you?
Yeah. And I believe men can understand that issue. And I think that was what was so brilliant about Michelle Obama's speech, is that she really brought the men along into it. She talked about, to all you men who love us women, to fathers, it's your mother, it's your niece, it's your daughter, it's your sister. It's your wife, it's all the women in your life. And she also told a story, about, the little girl that gets pregnant and has to put her life on hold. And she said, it's not just her, but her, the man, the boy who's involved is also going to have his life interrupted. Which, if we're talking about an ethical situation, of course the boy should be involved as well. It's going to affect his life, even if it's nothing more than having it on his conscience of what he did. that men have consciences too. And I love that she brought men into this, because as someone who I go out and I do texting, political texting, and that's what you're up against. You're up against the idea that this is just a woman's issue, that it's not something that men need to be concerned about. But I do believe that, that men are concerned about this issue, that they're empathetic to this issue. Not all men, but some are. Some certainly are. And like I said, 58% of men polled, believe that women should have the right to choose. And I believe that they are potential voters.
Well, to be quite honest with you, the numbers you just gave surprised me that they're so low, that it's only 60% of women. I would have assumed that number to have been much higher
but I
among
think,
women.
You think?
Like he said, I think it's a political thing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not because of that. Hey, Brian, I got to check out because I got to.
Okay, yeah, man. It's been so interesting that we went long.
Hey, but that's cool. But and you don't have to cut off the show, but I got to go because I got some things I got to do.
All right. Well, we will cut off the show. I want to say thank you very much for being here. I want to thank all of you for being here. We'll talk again after the election.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Please.
Hopefully, we'll be in a good place after the election.
Yes.
Good to see you, John.
If we still have free speech.
Good to see you, Rob.
All right.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye, Brian.
Rob Becker, Yanni Abbaba. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to do it for this week. It's going to be a real hairy 5 days. I'm going out for a prescription in Valium. In fact, right as soon as I'm done here. That's how nerve-wracking this next 5 days is going to be. If you like what it is that you are seeing here on YouTube, or that you're listening to, if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, please do us a favor and help us get some support. Best way to do that is on YouTube. Please make sure that you like the broadcast. Just let us know that you like it. Click like. The more likes we get, the better we are. As soon as we get enough of them, we can go live. If you like what you're listening to, go to your podcast provider where it says leave a review, leave us a 5-star review. That helps people to find the show as well. And I'm going to leave you with this, and that is vote. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. This is the most important election of our lifetime. It will really determine whether or not this 250 plus year, no, it's not 250 plus. You know what I'm saying. It's over 200 years, 76, 200 years. I don't feel like doing the math, but this couple century old experiment in democracy will work or not. Because if the election goes one way, then our way of life will continue. We'll continue to disagree about things. We'll continue to compromise on things. We will continue to try to find ways to solve problems, and we'll come up with new problems. But the whole fact is that we'll still all have some kind of a voice, in how these problems are dealt with. If it goes another way, then we won't. It's as simple as that. So vote, and I'm sure you know which way I lean. I'm endorsing. I don't have to endorse her. I know her. I've talked about it. I've told you I know her. Kamala Harris, I support 1,000%. And if you support Kamala Harris, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you have a son or a daughter or a grandson or a granddaughter or a niece or a nephew or a cousin who goes to college and is going to college in a battleground state, have them vote there. Have them vote in the battleground state, because those are the states that are going to determine who the next president of the United States is. Especially when we have a lot of listeners in California, because this is where it is that we are recording, and where a lot of our panels come from here in California. So thus we do have a large California viewership and listenership. But California is a blue state, and it's the Electoral College, which in my opinion, in a lot of opinions, is really anti-democratic. The one who has the most votes should win. I mean, that's simple. The most who has whoever the candidate is with the most votes should be the candidate who wins, but that's not always how it goes. So it's going to come down to the Electoral College. So if your young person in your life is a Californian who's going to school in Pennsylvania or in Wisconsin or in Michigan, have them vote there, because their vote will count a lot more there than it will here. California's going blue. I mean, there's no chance. I mean, there are going to be pockets of red. There are going to be some GOP Congress people, I'm sure, elected here in this state, but the state itself is going to go blue. That's not. There's no doubt of that. But it's the other states where you've got, as of I'm recording this right now on Wednesday. And you're seeing this Thursday or after. As of Wednesday, we're talking about 1 to 2 points on average in the battleground states separating these two candidates. 1 to 2 points. And in some places, that can come down to a couple of thousand or even a couple of hundred votes in terms of who gets the electors for that state. I mean, that's why they're doing things like, in Virginia, you have the Republicans trying to purge 1,600 votes that they are saying are votes of people who are not citizens. And a judge said, first of all, you can't do that this close to election. Second of all, what you're risking here is having people who are citizens swept up in it. First of all, if you even believe that there are that many non-citizens who are voting, that you're going to have people who are citizens swept up in this, and their vote is thrown out. Well, as of today, as of Wednesday morning, the Virginia State Supreme Court said, no, they can do it. They can throw the 1,600 votes out. And while 1,600 votes in the grand scheme of millions and tens of millions of American votes may not seem like a lot, in a battleground state, that 1,600 votes could mean the difference between Kamala Harris being in the White House and Donald Trump being in the White House. So have the young person in your life who is going to school, going to work, doing whatever in one of the battleground states to cast their ballot there. So I will we'll check out next week. Try to survive over the weekend. Make sure that you vote. And Godspeed. Till next time, be kind to your neighbor because he really knows them.